There is a number inside your body right now, and it has nothing to do with your cholesterol, your blood pressure, or your resting heart rate. Most doctors will never test it. Most fitness trackers cannot measure it. And yet, right now, in 2026, the world's leading longevity researchers are calling it the single most accurate biological marker of how fast you are aging. It is not your oxygen level. It is your carbon dioxide tolerance. And here is the part that will completely reframe everything you thought you knew about breathing, about energy, about health itself. Most of you watching this right now are suffocating yourselves while taking more breaths per minute than your biology was ever designed to handle. I am going to show you the science, the mechanism, the exact biological wave that is either extending or cutting short the years you have on this planet. And by the time this video ends, you will never breathe the same way again. Stay with me. This one goes all the way to the cellular level. Here at VitaWave, we operate from one foundational truth. Health is not a destination, it's a rhythm you learn to ride. We don't just treat symptoms here. We decode your biological waves, the chemical rhythms, the pressure cycles, the molecular signals your body sends every single second, so that we can turn back the clock from the inside out. And today, that biological wave we are decoding is breath. Not breathing as you learned it in school, not the motivational take a deep breath advice you've heard 1,000 times. The actual, measurable, molecular science of carbon dioxide and why it may be the most underestimated molecule in human longevity. The false narrative of oxygen. Let me ask you something. When you think about breathing for health, what do you think about? Oxygen. Of course, we all do. Breathe more, breathe deeper, get more oxygen in. That is the story we have been told since we were children. And I want to be very careful here because that story is not entirely wrong, but it is dangerously incomplete. Here is the physiological reality that most people in the health space refuse to talk about in 2026, and it is this. More oxygen intake does not equal more oxygen delivered to your cells. Read that again. You could be sitting right now taking large, fast breaths, flooding your lungs with oxygen, and your cells could be receiving less of it than someone who is breathing slowly, quietly, and far less dramatically. Why? Because oxygen does not simply float freely from your blood into your tissues. It is bound to hemoglobin, locked inside your red blood cells. And for that oxygen to be released, for hemoglobin to actually let go of it so your muscles, your brain, your heart can use it, your blood needs a certain level of carbon dioxide. This is not a fringe theory. This is a Nobel Prize-winning discovery made over a century ago by the Danish physiologist Christian Bohr, and somehow, in the age of biometric wearables and genetic sequencing, it remains one of the most overlooked mechanisms in human health. Here is what overbreathing actually does to you. When you breathe faster than your metabolic rate demands, which is what most chronically stressed, high-performing modern humans are doing every waking hour, you blow off carbon dioxide at a rate your body cannot sustain. Your blood CO2 drops. Hemoglobin grips oxygen tighter. Your cells, despite being surrounded by oxygen-rich blood, enter a state of functional starvation. And your nervous system, sensing this chemical imbalance, fires up your stress response, not because there's a tiger in the room, because of the chemistry of your breath. This is the hidden epidemic of 2026, not low oxygen, chronically low carbon dioxide tolerance, silently driving cellular dysfunction, systemic inflammation, nervous system dysregulation, and biological aging at a rate most people attribute entirely to genetics or lifestyle. You were told to breathe more. The science says, learn to breathe right. The CO2 Tolerance Test. Now here is where it gets personal, because there is a simple, zero-cost test you can do right now, today, in the next 5 minutes, that will tell you more about your biological resilience, your nervous system health, and your real-world aging rate than most blood panels your doctor orders annually. It's called the CO2 Tolerance Test, and in 2026, it has become the gold standard entry point for longevity assessment in elite sports medicine, high-performance human optimization, and serious anti-aging protocols. Here's how it works. Sit comfortably. Take one normal, relaxed breath in through your nose. Exhale that breath slowly, fully, completely. Then, at the bottom of that exhale, hold. Time how long it takes before you feel the first distinct urge to breathe. Not the breaking point, not where you're gasping for air. The first signal, that gentle, unmistakable nudge from your body that says, okay, I'd like some air now. That moment, measured in seconds, is your carbon dioxide tolerance score. And here's what the numbers mean. Under 20 seconds, your chemoreceptors are highly sensitized. Your nervous system is essentially running on high alert 24 hours a day. Chronic stress response, accelerated cellular aging, low resilience to physiological challenge. 20 to 40 seconds, moderate carbon dioxide tolerance. You're functional, but there's significant biological runway being left on the table. Your mitochondria are working harder than they need to. 40 to 60 seconds, strong carbon dioxide tolerance. Your nervous system has solid chemical resilience. Oxygen delivery is efficient. You are aging at a biologically measured, controlled rate. Over 60 seconds, this is elite longevity territory. This is the zone associated with low systemic inflammation, high heart rate variability, and the kind of biological age that bears no relationship to your chronological birthday. What makes this test so extraordinary is what it's actually measuring beneath the surface. It's not measuring lung capacity, it's measuring chemoreceptor sensitivity, how quickly your brainstem panics in response to a CO2 signal. And your chemoreceptors don't just control your urge to breathe, they control your entire autonomic nervous system's response to stress. High chemoreceptor sensitivity means your nervous system overreacts to everything, to a difficult conversation, to a traffic jam, to a restless night's sleep, to an inflammatory signal from damaged tissue. Low chemoreceptor sensitivity, achieved through deliberate CO2 training, means your nervous system operates with a steady, measured chemical hand. It doesn't spiral, it regulates, it recovers. This is why certain long-living populations in Sardinia, in the blue zones, in traditional communities with low rates of chronic disease tend to breathe less, slower, quieter, more nasal. It's not coincidence, it's chemistry, the Bohr Effect and cellular fueling. Let me bring you directly into the molecular level now, because this is where the story of carbon dioxide becomes genuinely extraordinary. In 1904, Christian Bohr, the father of Danish physicist Niels Bohr, published a finding that should have rewritten every health textbook on Earth.
He discovered that the release of oxygen from hemoglobin is directly controlled by CO2 and pH. Higher CO2 in the blood equals lower blood pH, more acidic, equals hemoglobin releases oxygen more freely into tissues. Lower CO2 from overbreathing equals higher blood pH equals hemoglobin holds on to oxygen like a closed fist. This is the Bohr effect, and it is not a subtle physiological footnote. It is the master mechanism of cellular fueling, your mitochondria, those ancient, extraordinary organelles inside every cell that produce ATP, your body's energy currency. They are entirely dependent on this mechanism working correctly. When CO2 levels are chronically low, mitochondria receive less oxygen despite blood being saturated with it. ATP production becomes less efficient. Reactive oxygen species, cellular waste products, accumulate faster. Inflammation pathways activate. And at the gene expression level, this is where the longevity data becomes alarming, you begin to see accelerated telomere shortening. Your cells are aging faster, not because of what you ate, not because you skipped a workout, because of the silent, invisible chemical consequence of breathing too much air too fast for too many years. Now flip it. When you train your CO2 tolerance, when you deliberately raise your body's comfort with elevated CO2, the Bohr effect works in your favor. Oxygen floods your tissues, mitochondria operate at peak efficiency, inflammation markers drop, your biological age, not the number on your passport, but the molecular reality of your cellular health, begins to move backward. This is not metaphor. This is measurable, reproducible, peer-reviewed science, and it is available to every single person watching this right now. Rhythmic recovery and the longevity wave. So what do we actually do with this? How do we train the CO2 wave? The research points to one breath cycle above all others, and it is beautifully simple. 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out. Roughly 5.5 breaths per minute. This is the resonance frequency of human cardiorespiratory physiology, the specific breathing rhythm at which your heart rate variability is maximized, your baroreflex sensitivity is optimized, and your autonomic nervous system achieves its highest state of regulated efficiency. At this rate, CO2 builds gently, appropriately, sustainably. Your chemoreceptors recalibrate over weeks and months of practice. Your nervous system learns at a chemical level that CO2 is safe, that it is not a threat, that it is information. And as that recalibration happens, something remarkable begins to unfold in your biology. Sleep quality improves because the respiratory drive that was waking you up, that was keeping you in shallow, fragmented sleep, quiets down. Exercise performance improves because oxygen is now being delivered to muscles with far greater efficiency. Cognitive clarity sharpens because your brain, which consumes 20% of your body's oxygen at rest, is finally getting the consistent, efficient supply it needs. And here is the practice that accelerates this recalibration faster than any other. Air hunger drills. This is deliberate, controlled exposure to the sensation of CO2, not breath holding to the point of panic, but gently sustaining a mild sense of wanting more air during normal breathing, during a walk, during a light jog, even during a quiet sit. You breathe just slightly less than you want to, just enough to keep that gentle awareness of, I could take a bigger breath alive, without acting on it. Over time, weeks, months, your chemoreceptors reset. That 20-second CO2 tolerance score becomes 35, then 45, then 60. And with every second you add to that score, you're adding something far more valuable to your biological life. This is what the world's longest living populations do naturally. They breathe less. They move at a pace that demands efficient gas exchange, not maximal air intake. They sleep in positions that promote nasal breathing. They live at an effortful, measured, rhythmic pace. Not because they read a research paper, because their cultural rhythms, their biological waves, never broke in the first place. Engineering your future breath. So let me give you the complete blueprint, because knowing the science is one thing, living it is the whole point. Step 1. Establish your baseline. Do the CO2 tolerance test we talked about. Write the number down. Date it. This is your biological starting line. Step 2. Commit to nasal breathing all day, every night. The nasal passage is not decorative anatomy. It filters, it humidifies, it adds nitric oxide to incoming air, a molecule that dilates blood vessels and dramatically improves oxygen uptake. It slows airflow naturally, building CO2 to optimal levels. Mouth breathing, especially during sleep, is one of the fastest routes to chemoreceptor dysregulation, sleep fragmentation, facial structural changes, and accelerated cardiovascular aging. If you wake up with a dry mouth, you are mouse breathing at night. Mouth tape, applied gently across the lips before sleep, is one of the single highest leverage interventions in longevity biology. Not expensive, not complicated, profoundly impactful. Step 3. Practice the 5.5 cycle daily, 10 minutes minimum.
Morning is ideal. It sets your autonomic tone for the entire day. Breathe in for 5.5 seconds through the nose. Breathe out through slightly pursed lips or the nose. Repeat for 10 minutes. Track how you feel before and after. Notice what shifts. Step 4. Integrate air hunger into movement. During your next walk, try breathing only through your nose at your normal walking pace. If that feels fine, pick up the pace slightly until you feel that gentle awareness of wanting more air. Stay there for 5 to 10 minutes, then release. You have just done a CO2 training session. No equipment, no subscription, no protocol software. Just you and your own extraordinary biology. Step 5. Track your CO2 tolerance weekly. Every Sunday morning, before coffee, before food, after 5 minutes of quiet sitting, retest. Record your number. Within 4 to 6 weeks of consistent practice, most people see their score rise by 10 to 20 seconds. That rise is not just a number, it's your nervous system recalibrating, your chemoreceptors quieting down, your mitochondria breathing a molecular sigh of relief. It's your biological clock, for the first time in maybe years, starting to move in a direction that actually serves the life you want to live. And if you want to go further, wearable biofeedback devices now exist that can measure your breath rate, heart rate variability, and even CO2 proxy metrics in real time. In 2026, these tools have become accessible, accurate, and genuinely useful for anyone serious about biological optimization. But the point is not the device. The point is the awareness. I want to leave you with something that I come back to every time I sit down to record one of these. Most of us are waiting for a diagnosis before we start paying attention to our biology. We wait for the blood test result that frightens us, the symptom that will not go away.
The doctor's appointment that changes everything. But your biology is speaking to you right now. Every breath you take is a signal. Every exhale is your body doing chemistry, managing pH, calibrating your nervous system, deciding how much oxygen to release into the tissues that keep you alive. The question is whether you are listening, because health is not a destination, it's a rhythm you learn to ride. And the rhythm of your breath, the CO2 wave that pulses through your blood 20,000 times a day, is either working for your longevity or quietly working against it. You now know which one it has been. You now know what to do. If this gave you something real today, share it with one person who needs it. Leave a comment with your CO2 tolerance score. I read every single one. And subscribe to VitaWave, because next week we are going into something that will absolutely change the way you think about sleep, cellular repair, and the one overnight window your body uses to either age or regenerate. You do not want to miss that one. I am Dr. Elias Site. Ride the wave.